All right, well, good afternoon, Matadors. My name is Esther Lanier. I'm the Associate Director for Employer Relations, and I have the pleasure today to be co-facilitating with you with Michelle Garcia. She is the International Student Advisement Specialist for the International and Exchange Students Center. And today we're here to talk to you all about launching your career in terms of job search for you international students. So please feel free to type any questions you may have in the chat, and myself or Michelle can definitely address them for you. And I also have my colleague Sarah on the line here, so she can also help us out. But without further ado, I will definitely get started. All right. So just to check in with you all, today's objective is really I wanted to just give you an insight in terms of as international students, what are some job search strategies that you can consider. There's multiple, so I'm not saying that these suggested ones are the ones that you need to follow, but everyone pretty much is able to adapt to their own. Talk briefly about resumes and cover letters and why those tools are important. And then I wanted to also show you a job sample to just give you an understanding of how to dissect, I would say, what the description says and how you can present yourself to that position, and also just very brief interviewing tips, and then giving you some resources that will be helpful to you in your search. All right, but at first I wanted to check in with you all. And how's everyone doing? Is there anything that's in your mind that you find that's stressing you out at the moment? You can feel free to put in the chat if you like, or you can unmute yourself as well. Are you liking the weather so far? All right. Okay, everything's going well. That's great. I know school is in full swing, and here at the Career Center too, we're in full swing, just providing a lot of different programming for you. But I will definitely, go along the presentation here. But if you have any questions, by all means, please do put them in the chat. So pretty much today, my goal is really in helping us really brainstorm different job search strategies, is really identifying your goals, whatever they may be, small or big, it doesn't matter, in terms of, what industry are you looking to be employable at, or what type of employer really calls your attention, what is your value in terms of how you feel comfortable in terms of what the company stands for and what's important to you as well. Definitely making sure that your LinkedIn profile is updated. LinkedIn is your PR pretty much. So you want to make sure that you have the best representation of your skills, your projects, everything that pertains to you that is well represented on your LinkedIn profile. And definitely your LinkedIn can always be updated, and there definitely ought to be some activity on it. So just so you know, obviously we know that anything that's on the web, it's pretty much algorithm driven, right? And so the more activity we put on our LinkedIn, the more it prompts the recruiters on the back end that you are active, whether you're posting, reposting, whether you're writing articles or participating in some kind of activity within the system itself. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is active in terms of you participating in, engaging in it, but also that your information experience-wise is constantly being tweaked as much as you want. Also, we know that evaluating job posting is one way that we're going to know what skills are looking for. We know that there's many different skill sets that employers are going to be looking forward to, and the job descriptions are really the easiest way to know what they are. The way that we engage with employers as well, whether it be through conferences or through our workshops or our career fairs, networking events, you start hearing what the employers are looking for so that you can prepare yourself for what that industry is specifically looking for. And let me take a look at really quick here. Okay, so I have a question here. It says about internships. I heard an international student, we only could have internships if our major provide with the curriculum. What is my major doesn't provide that. Okay, that is information that Michelle can definitely tap into when she speaks about OPT and CPT. And then definitely will get into answering those questions more in detail. But also know that LinkedIn Learning is one way that you can always upskill. Okay, so up with LinkedIn Learning, which you have access through the CSUN libraries, is obviously you are able to take any course that you like or learn any new tool that you will like, and that can also be part of a certification that you can provide through your LinkedIn profile. And yes, your networks do count. So, and they are definitely your worth. So it does count who we know, because those particular individuals that we're connected to are definitely the web to us being able to tap into opportunities that employers may not be listing through the general job boards. And so you want to make sure that your networks count and that it is worth your time. And I'll go later in terms of showing you other ways that you can tap into the CSUN alumni base. All right. All right, so we all know how we want to set ourselves apart and how do we bring value to the organization. Now, when we meet employers at a career fair, at a networking event, or whichever way, we can meet them at the grocery store. It doesn't matter where we meet people, right? But you always want to think in terms of when you're interacting with someone that you actually think of, that you think outside the box. What's unique about you? So for example, if you follow a particular company that you're very much interested in, and you know that there's a problem that you can identify and that you have the ability to be able to come in and address it or provide some insights to. Employers really like that because it goes beyond you just being a general candidate or applicant to their opportunities, which is obviously not just you, but many other individuals as well. And so you also want to create the space to tell your story. Moving forward, you are a walking brand, okay? And so knowing your story is going to be very important. And what I mean by your story is knowing your skills, really understanding how to translate what you're learning in class, what you've learned in your academic involvement, what you've learned through your internships, what you've learned through community activities, whatever it is that composes your story, you want to make sure that you have that ability to be able to share that with whoever the employer can be, or could be your peer, it could be your colleague, anyone. But there's also ways that employers really like to see what we bring to the table. And so, for example, if your interest is that you like to blog or you have your own website, obviously your LinkedIn could be a very easy place to start, or in aspects of your social media. All those different avenues tell a story about what you bring to the table. So I think that your uniqueness is how you want to present what story or what is it about you that you want others to know. And again, building your networks is always going to be important. And so always know that through your resume is not just the only way that you're going to be able to present your story, but through different avenues you can leverage. Now, the resume piece, we know that is a place that you're going to market yourself. This is beyond just wanting to work for the company of your interest, but I've been on the recruiting end myself, and I would like to see right away on a resume, how does this particular person's experience align to the job I'm looking to recruit? One thing you want to know about recruiters is that they have very specific opportunities that they're recruiting for. They don't have time to figure out what Esther would like to be interested in. You're applying for a very specific role, and you're letting her know exactly how it is that you can do that job. And you want to tell me beyond just telling me through a job duty. You want to exemplify through your accomplishments what you've done in relation to that experience. Okay, so again, telling a compelling story of what you've accomplished and how your experience translates to that new role. And I wanted to share with you just a very simple, I call it a resume bullet formula that I like to leverage, because a lot of times we're really great about writing just a statement of what we do or just a job duty. But the whole goal of the resume is to go beyond that, because when you look at a resume and you look at someone's job title, you can more or less understand what the responsibilities are, right? But then again, you don't want to give anyone else an opportunity to think for you. You want to tell them exactly what it is that your experience is all about. So utilizing the right action verb to start describing what you did is going to be key. And then, well, how is that important, or what was the purpose of that particular employer knowing that? So the two. So evaluated large sets of data. Two, and you go from there, right? And then what is the impact? So the impact always the outcome. Everything that we do for our employers is because we want to be results oriented. And so whenever you can quantify, I understand that not everything that we do will be in a quantifiable form, but definitely what it is that it was supposed to achieve that you took part in. And with that, I wanted to show you what a not so good bullet point looks like and one that would be better written. So worked as a social media coordinator to brand company website. So, okay, you told me your title and you told me about the company's website. That's it. And I know you worked, right? So there's nothing there that's exciting for me to know about what you're trying to bring to the table. A better way to consider would be launch a successful marketing campaign, increasing client engagement 50%, utilizing social media platforms such as Instagram, improving brand recognition into the Latino community. So that is one way that wherever you can quantify, inject numbers in there wherever you can, if it's applicable to the experience you want to share. But this gives a little bit more insight in terms of what accomplishments you bring to the table. So what's the difference? Obviously, resume bullet points, I tailor to the job as well. They're quantitative in nature because you want to set yourself apart by showcasing how well you've been able to be an asset to the organization that you're part of. Okay, or the student organization, whatever your experience comes from. And then obviously we know that you want to be results oriented. So always think that you have something to bring. And if you don't give me very specific details, then it doesn't give you justice to the experience you're trying to bring forth. If you have any questions, please, by all means, type them into the chat, okay? All right, so briefly cover letters. Look, any employer is going to always ask you, why should I hire you? Why should we or I, okay? The we is because a lot of times, there's a committee involved, or the I could be just a party of one in terms of the hiring manager. But the point here in a very simple way is that this is not what you want to gain from the employer, it's what you bring to the employer. So looking again, what is the way that you're going to showcase the employer, what you bring to the table, understanding thoroughly that your background is relevant to the experience they're asking for. And so again, it's not a long document you're writing. It's top 4 paragraphs, 3 or 4 paragraphs, introduction, 2 middle paragraphs, and your closing. And then again, I encourage you to use AI. However, with the caution that AI is not just going to be writing things and speaking for you. Because remember that this information you provide to your potential employer, resume, or your cover letter, they're going to ask you information from that document you submit. So it shouldn't be like, oh, did I write that? No, again, this is where you want to make sure that it is speaking in your voice, that is representing you. Don't make it sound like it's too mechanical, that it's too fancy if that's the way that you choose to write. So let it be representative of who you are, so that when you come into the interview, that you feel that you have represented yourself well throughout the process. Again, in response to the why should I hire you, okay, you really want to demonstrate your skill sets. This is where, when you look at the cover letter and the job description, it's making those connections, okay? This is not, well, how many examples can I provide? You have to pick and choose as you evaluate the job description, what it is that you bring to the table, okay? So obviously, some employers may want a cover letter, some don't. That's always a question, what do I do if they don't? I always just pretty much err on submitting the cover letter, because it can give me the space to add additional things about my experience that my resume may not fully demonstrate, just because the resume only shows you historical data for the most part, right? And so you want to make sure that it's your space to really be able to answer in person. If they were to ask you, why should I hire you, that you have that message right away, okay? So the first sentence is always very important too, because if you're telling me, I am applying for XYZ position because I found it on Handshake, good for you. That doesn't tell me much. That's just what everybody else does. But what is it that throughout the description that really connects you to the opportunity that I'm recruiting for, okay? Also, again, using bullet points on your resume. I'm sorry, on the cover letter, okay? If you need to. Sometimes that might be an easier way to showcase your accomplishments than in the paragraph form. So it's you pick and choose how you want to be able to present that. So it's not always a paragraph, but if you feel like, you know what, in 3 or 4 bullet points, I can showcase, very specifically the experiences that I bring into this job as what they're looking for, then that's one way that you can do it. And then here's what I wanted to just venture into a little bit in terms of, this is how I personally would evaluate a description to find out what is the message this employer is looking for. So everything that I'm looking at, usually when students take a look at a job description, they go directly towards its requirements. Well, you missed pretty much the first half of the story of what the employer is looking for. So really take some time to understand the behind the scenes of what the employer is asking for. Put yourself in the shoes of the recruiter, of that employer, okay? In this particular position, by the way, that I found on Handshake, so you feel free to look it up if you like. But again, this one says so it's for Samsung, and they're looking, again, for a summer intern. And so they start right away, and the job descriptions give you those keywords: developing, next generation, discovery and software and user experience. So far, they're looking for someone that's innovative. I don't even have to go further. Just by those keywords, you have to really look at, okay, they're looking for someone that's innovative, that obviously you love tools, because the user experience is really what in this particular organization is looking to maximize. You're going to be researching and developing. So keyword, develop twice, right? Partnering, creating a collaborative environment. So teamwork, right? A culture of innovation, research and new ideas. So you see how those keywords have repeated in many different ways so far. And so you want to keep that in mind as you're building your case for your resume, because these are the key things that you want to be able to show that you bring in. So by the way, if you see that these are some words are in red, that's because I don't know if you've used F1 Hire, but that what it does, it highlights the keywording that the job description has. And so I just wanted to keep it here. But again, collaborating. So collaboration's been mentioned a lot, partnering, passionate about consumer facing, user experience, okay, emerging technologies, data design, team projects, fun and creative, user experience. So again, just in the first 2 lines that I read the description, I could tell right away what this employer is looking for. So they're even reiterating it. That means it's important, okay? And it continues. So this is now breaking into the position responsibilities. Oh, ideation and creation, working in across different domains. Again, AI and local research was highlighted. Create team. Obviously, you're going to look at data, so you're going to be providing insights through the research, right? User experience, very important. Defining what those metrics are based on the experience you bring in through doing your research. The relationships. So if you gather here, they're not just looking for someone that is just very technical in nature. They're looking for a person. And so this is where you have to identify that employers are equally looking for a soft skill and a hard skill. So by me just reading this opportunity here, they're looking a lot for more your soft skills, your people skills, you're working with others, okay? And so this is where you get to evaluate yourself and see where it is that you can bring in those highlights of your experience on your resume and cover letter. So then it kind of got to the end here. Okay, by the way, I want these skill sets. Okay, so now it's like an reiteration of the first couple of paragraphs. So data and research, they obviously understand technology, build strong relationships closely with others, right? Working teams, works in teams. So you get to see now that in a nutshell, they're looking for someone that's technical, but definitely a heavy load in terms of being able to build relationships and working in a team. So when it comes to understanding what the employer is asking for, okay, so we all have hard skills and soft skills. But again, remember that even though AI is already helping many industries across the board, AI is not going to replace you and I. We're still people. They still need that human component attached to it. So employers are really going to maximize that ever more, okay? So when we look at even at the NACE, which is the National Association for Colleges and Employers, and they look at, well, what are employers looking for in a candidate, right? When it comes to the resume, problem solving, that was the highest one so far, but ability to work in a team, hence from this description that we've had, isn't that what they're pretty much asking for? Okay, so think about how it is that you can identify these particular skill sets through your own experiences and highlighting them to the employer and based on what their needs are. So the hard skills is pretty much what technical skills you have, and that's obviously more in terms of the hardware that you know or any new ones that you may have to learn. By the way, to be competitive, if you find that through your courses, there are particular softwares that not being taught to you. Guess what? You're gonna have to do some self-teaching these other additional tools yourself so that you can be equipped. Okay, and that to an employer shows initiative and that you're always willing to stay up to date in terms of your industry. And then just here in terms of the interviewing, I'm sure that at some point you may already have gone through an interview, but I just wanted to showcase to you how it is to frame your experience through the interview process. And I'm sure you probably heard of the STAR method, but it's very important because when an employer is always going to ask you, for the most part, a open-ended question, a behavior-based question. They're really trying to see how has Esther dealt with XYZ situation. And so the questions are going to be anything, and it shouldn't be, well, what should I prepare for? Prepare to understand what the job is asking for and prepare how you bring forth experiences that can relate to that opportunity. So in the case of this job example that I showed you, teamwork was one of them, building relationships. So I wouldn't be surprised if an employer is asking me, tell me about a time when working in a team did not go well for you or you experienced a difficult time. Tell me about a time, very open. So then you get to choose what experience you want to share, okay? And it's not that the employer is going to make a judgment on what experience you're sharing. The goal is for you to showcase how you handle that situation. So you're describing what happened, right? What was your responsibility in that situation or the task? Well, what did you do? What action did you do to solve that? And then what was the outcome? If the outcome wasn't positive, what did you learn from it? And if it was positive, what was the takeaway from it? So always think about your storytelling, your experience. No one knows you best but yourself. So this is where the equipping of yourself and preparing yourself for the job search, it takes many different phases, but it starts with you because the employer is not going to be convinced first that you can do the job. It's actually you. You are the one that puts yourself out there saying, you know what, I can do this job and I will show this employer in these ways that I can come in and help the employer based on what they are looking for. And then as we get into more interviewing tips, and so as you do your search or talk to employers, you will know that skill-based hiring is really where it's at. So our skills are going to be reflective of, what experiences we bring in. And in the interview process, really where that's going to be showcased. So the interview process is as critical as submitting your resume and your cover letter. I consider your resume and cover letter as your ticket to the opportunity to be at the table, okay? Now the interview is, I'm at the table and how am I gonna handle the situation to be able to showcase to the employer, yes, I am here and I can answer any question you want about Esther because Esther knows herself best, and here you go. And if there's a question, for example, an employer may ask you like, oh, that they really got me and I don't know, common sense kicks in right away. So you wanna make sure that you can be definitely transparent and say, in my experience, I have not encountered that particular situation. However, this is how I would, handle that particular situation. Like show your problem solving abilities even on the spot so that the employer understands, okay, like Esther can think on her feet and she can come up with, different ways to solve whatever comes her way. I wanted to jump into the jobs and internship resources here. So most of you are definitely on Handshake, definitely look on LinkedIn as well. And then I mentioned F1 Hire. Actually, F1 Hire, you can do it as a, oh gosh, I'm forgetting the word here, but you can attach it to LinkedIn and it's going to showcase to you what are the keywords that the description is looking for, but also it's going to showcase to you the employers that are up to or open to, sponsoring students pretty much when it comes to the OPT or CPT space. Parker Dewey, these are paid internships as well, or micro internships you can take part in. For example, Forage, these are self-paced projects you can get involved with that you can definitely gain experience in. So I would definitely highlight that you may want to consider that. UniWorld, this is a cool resource because you get to identify US companies abroad and foreign companies that also have headquarters or have a presence here in the US. So when I look at the job search from an international perspective, really think broadly, because it's going to help you to identify, you know, opportunities that, or even employers that you may not have thought about that could be in your area of interest. The U.S. Department of Labor disclosure files, that's pretty much a H-1B visa disclosure files from 2008 to present that gives you job titles, industry, company address, and just a different company contact that you can access. And I'll put those links on the chat after I'm done presenting here. And then going global is really great as well, because it gives you the opportunity to see which companies have already submitted for a petition of H-1B visas as well. And then the H-1B, same thing. It's a salary database, and so you can see also what employers have, you know, gone through the H-1B visa space. And then my visa jobs, really with that, it's just a list of U.S. employers that, you know, have granted H-1B visa spaces. So I'm sure you may also have your own that you've encountered yourself, but these are some that I wanted to share with you. And the same thing with OPT Nation. Again, opportunities that showcase for OPT opportunities for students. And so remember, I was talking about networking is your worth, and that it's important. So Ask a Matador is a great tool to utilize. Definitely the Alumni Association is in connection with, you know, the 200,000 plus alumni out there that are just like all of us, you know, at some point are willing to give back to the university. And therefore, Ask a Matador is one way that you can reach out to the Alumni Association and ask them, I'm really looking for someone that can help me understand how to navigate this space in this industry. Obviously, with the Alumni Association, you also have the Corporate Connect program. That's another great way to do your company tours, you can say, and get to network with the employers themselves. And so what a great way to be able to get exposed to the company, to the industry, and to alumni that work in those particular companies too. Please type in any questions that you may have on the chat. If there's anything that I'm not covering, let me know. I probably went by too fast. Just wanted to give Michelle some time to do her part, but I encourage you also to visit us. And so you visit us in drop-ins, you know, and you can definitely utilize CareerLink to find a lot of these resources as well. And we're here to help you. So definitely take advantage of the opportunities that are being presented. Obviously, coming up, we have Tech Fest, which is next week. So the question here is, does UniWorld show jobs outside of the US? So what UniWorld is a database, okay? So it's a database, it's very intense, by the way, that you can identify US companies abroad. And so you can definitely, you know, find subsidiaries of those organizations as well. And so it links you directly to those companies. And so obviously it's going to send you to their careers section of their website. So yes, you can definitely leverage that as a way to identify opportunities. And let's see, I think follow us. We are definitely very active now on our social media platforms, so join us. And without further ado, I will give the floor over to Michelle, and she can talk to you all about OPT and CPT.
Thank you so much, Esther. Let me go ahead and start share. While I'm doing that, there was a question about sharing the presentation or the recording, if you can shine some light on that to students.
Yeah, so definitely I will be able to share the recording and the PowerPoint slides if you're okay with that as well, Michelle.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
No issues
No
here.
problem.
Thank you. All right. Can you all see my screen? I'm hoping. Yes. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And thank you, Esther, for inviting me to speak. I think a big part of the job search process is understanding, obviously, your visa regulations and your limitations of what you can or cannot do. So I'm happy to shine some light on that and your limitations and what processes must take place before actually accepting the job. I know all of the talk that Esther had shared with us is about even before you get to the point where you're getting an offer, right? Where are you looking for these job opportunities? How do you do that? But I also want you guys to, before you go into that job search mindset, is understanding, well, if I'm looking for a job, under what category does this job fall under within my visa requirements or limitations? So I want to share that information with you all, and obviously at any point in time, feel free to enter questions in the chat. And then even outside of today's presentation, making sure to continuously connect with the ISC and our advising team. So as far as our advising team, they could not all be here, but I am here representing them. We have Brenda Acosta, Cynthia Alvarez, Nicole, and myself as your international student advisors. So we are at the forefront of meeting with all you international students and helping you work out through the very complex immigration regulations and do's and don'ts. On this side, we also have Apizda and Key Wang, who are our CVIS coordinators. So they do all of the data analyzing and probably all of the email blasts that you guys are continuously getting from our office, and making sure that you guys are maintaining your status. So I want to share that if you connected with anyone in the ISC, it's probably one of these team members, and we will continue to assist you as needed. So looking into your options and, like I said, your limitations or opportunities, understanding really what is it that you're trying to do as far as job or employment as an international student while you're here in the US. So there are differences in something we called an employment option versus a practical training option, which is more specific to CPT and OPT. And I'll go into further details, but I like to just kind of show this little chart or bullet point and understanding on-campus employment, right? Who approves that? The ISC. Employment option for an economic hardship, right? We understand things happen, life happens, and sometimes unexpectedly, where it could affect your ability to remain in the US and to study. So there is something called off-campus employment due to an economic hardship, and that is approved at the government level. So it is not approved by the ISC, but it is seen as an employment option and a benefit of your F1 status. So those are the two options that we really look at as an employment. Then we transition into what we call practical training options, known as curricular practical training, CPT, which is also approved by the ISC based on your curriculum. And we had this question earlier about the internship course, right? So it is completely connected to your major or to your academic department, and therefore it is approved at the school level based on the curriculum. And then obviously we have the most common practical training option for F1 students, which is OPT, optional practical training. Optional meaning it is up to you to determine if that is something you want to partake in. And there are three types of OPT. There's pre, post, and STEM. And that's similar to off-campus employment. There is approved by our government based on a formal application that the International and Exchange Student Center will help you kind of prepare for that and get the application going. At any point in time during your studies here, if you have questions about what's an employment option versus what is practical training, or how do I apply to any of these four employment or practical training options, you want to connect with us. Today's presentation is going to kind of give you a quick glimpse. So again, I invite you to stay connected with us and maybe dive into one of these options a little deeper with us through an appointment or through our separate webinars. So obviously, I think the most common, I won't spend too much time. As you all know, you are all, as an F1 student, eligible to partake in on-campus employment. Any on-campus employment, it doesn't have to necessarily be directed or related to your major. Keep in mind that while school is in session, you are only partaking in on-campus employment at a part-time status. Versus during our summer or winter periods known as our vacation periods, you can definitely partake in this employment option at a full-time level, which is 21 hours or more. And that obviously is dependent on the on-campus employer and if they have the ability to offer you those hours. So I do want to just preface that because I'm not saying they're going to automatically give you those hours. I think it also is dependent on the coverage that the department on campus needs and if it's something feasible during the winter or summer terms. What are some of the eligibility criteria for on campus? You all need to be enrolled. So obviously enrollment is a huge aspect in you taking benefit in this and obviously making sure that you're in a good academic standing. I think there's times where, you know, I understand financial difficulties come into play, but obviously you are all here for an academic career or degree program. So your academics truly come first before partaking in any type of employment. And so some of the common forms that you will be obviously navigating with us to get your authorization for on-campus employment is our verification form of international student status, an offer letter from the on-campus department, and then our student letter request. This is really needed, obviously, if you do not already have an SSN, a social security number, then you're working with our office to get you the proper immigration documents to then go apply for that social security number. That will be needed, of course, in order to compensate you for the work that you are doing. And then the verification form is used internally between the ISC and Human Resource Department. So that's why it's also a key form that will be submitted to us if you do partake in on-campus employment. And then obviously we're going to go into the practical training aspect of practical training options. So CPT, I think it's one of the common questions that our department gets. And what is CPT? So when you think about CPT, I want you to think about a paid internship, a cooperative education, or practicum. So really, again, the key word here is curricular. It is attached to some curriculum within your program, mostly related to an internship class. So I think there was a question about, well, what if my department does not offer that internship class where there can be a clear understanding that the training that you'll be doing is curricular. So unfortunately, if you are part of one of our academic departments that does not offer an internship class, then that does automatically, you know, cancel your opportunity to partake in CPT. But that doesn't mean that you won't have an opportunity at a later time. It just won't happen during your course of study. It will most likely happen during the OPT process, and we'll go into deeper explanation on that shortly. But for those students who do have an internship course and your academic department does provide that internship course to you, mostly it's, I think, offered for most students in like their final year. I don't practically see students engaging in CPT within their first semester or second semester. And based on visa regulations, you do need to at least be in status for 1 year. So like I said, it doesn't typically happen in a student's first year. It's technically either in their second year or within their last year of study. So when do you apply for CPT? I think one of the main components that you need to, you know, engage your academic department is understanding, well, when is this course available to me, if it is? And is it a course that I'm taking during a spring or fall term or during even a summer term? And so based on the academic department's advice and guidance, you'll know at what point to submit the documentation to us. Students are typically submitting the CPT request to us before the start of the semester because they are going to engage in the curricular practical training at the start of every semester or a few weeks into it. We typically will authorize CPT anywhere between the week 1 up until week 4, when is our add drop deadline. In the event that you have not added your internship class, that there's an opportunity to do that before the add drop deadline. That's really the typical cutoff time, because at that point in time, if you haven't added the internship course for that semester, then we know you will not be able to partake in CPT without the course. So what is needed for the application process? Obviously, again, a key component is the internship course, needing to be in a good academic standing, and then having the CPT request form signed by you in your academic department that is going to be overseeing the internship. That is, again, directly related to your field. And so obviously the offer letter would be the final item in the process. So all of those documents are being sent to us and it's being reviewed. It does take us, I would say, anywhere between a week or up to 3 weeks. And obviously, if there's any issues in your application, then we'll notify you. So please, I do ask that students apply early in the event that there are any issues with your application, that there is time to fix those issues before the start of the semester. And so one important keynote that you see there on your screen at the very bottom is any student who is engaging in a curricular practical training for 12 months or more, especially at a full-time hour, does make them ineligible for OPT, which will be on my next screen. So it's very important that you understand that if you do decide to engage in CPT, and you are doing that for several semesters, that you may actually unqualified to partake in OPT, which is the second type of practical training under your F1 status. So being mindful, I will say that we do not approve CPT for a year at a time. We actually only approve CPT per semester that you're enrolled in the internship class. So if you are someone who is going to engage in CPT for multiple semesters, we'll continue to remind you of that important note, because we want to make sure that you are engaging in CPT within the limits and not disqualifying yourself for OPT.
Michelle, we have a question.
Yeah.
The question says, should I submit the applications to get Social Security for the campus job, even though I've got a Social Security already?
Great question. So no, and SSN is kind of like your student ID number. It sticks with you, right? And if you have already received an SSN for maybe a previous on-campus employer, or if you're a transfer student and had on-campus employment at your previous school, then that same SSN will be presented through the onboarding or hiring process with your on-campus employer. The SSN or Social Security application process is only needed if you don't already have one. All right, so moving on to optional practical training versus CPT. Again, think about CPT as a very temporary authorization. OPT is typically an authorization for up to 12 months. So it's a much more mainstream or common type of a practical training that our students will partake in. Now, there are 3 types, and I kind of want to distinguish that before I focus on our second post-completion OPT. Pre-OPT means authorization before completing your degree. So like that student about CPT and not being eligible because your department may not offer that course, you might want to actually, in this case, look into pre-OPT. Now, again, whether it's pre or post, OPT can only be authorized for up to 12 months. So if you do partake in pre-OPT, you are automatically taking time away from your post-completion OPT period. So that's, I think, one of the drawbacks and why it may not actually be as common for a lot of F1 students, but it is still an option for you. We have a fully dedicated page on pre-OPT. Pre-OPT, though, is only approved at the part-time status because you're still in your program, versus post-OPT is at a full-time status. So again, a lot of students, knowing that information, will just hold off and engage in the workforce at full-time hours after they complete their degree. And then lastly, we have our STEM extension OPT, which is an additional 24-month extension from the post-completion OPT of up to 12 months. So for my STEM designated majors, you may actually get up to 3 years of OPT if you consider the 1 year of post-OPT and then the 24-month or 2-year extension for STEM degree majors. STEM degree majors are outlined by the Department of Homeland Security. There is a fully STEM designated list. And so that information is also posted on our STEM OPT webpage, which I will definitely share with you after our presentation. But again, it is not outlined by the school. It is actually outlined by our government. And so if you fall under one of those categories, then you would be eligible for the extension. So I want to just really focus on post-OPT. Like I said, it is the most common type of OPT that our students here, and I think just nationwide, will actually partake in. Again, when are you considering to apply for this? You're really considering this in your final semester, because when you think about it, again, it's an authorization and that will be provided after graduation. Do you need a job to apply? The answer is no, but obviously we understand that once the student becomes approved, they are highly engaging in that job search process that Esther explained to you earlier. So aside from applying for a post-OPT in your final semester, I think you are also engaging in that job search process. So aligning both of those processes can get tricky, but it's something to always keep in mind, so that obviously if you do get the authorization from our government to partake in OPT, then you can just smoothly transition into the job search process and then hopefully work in the workforce. And so, like I said, OPT is at a full-time hour per week limitation, meaning anything over 21 hours or more is considered full-time for immigration purposes. And in most cases, I think for the Department of Labor, just it's anything above, I think, 30 hours, if I'm not mistaken. So there is a difference, I think, what F1 status or immigration regulations consider full-time versus the Department of Labor or your employer considers full-time. So understanding the differences there. And so when to apply for OPT, like I said, you're applying in your final semester, and more specifically 90 days before graduating, but no later than 60 days after. And so the approval process is a two-step process that does require updating of your Form I-20. So the update of your Form I-20 can take the ISC anywhere between, I would say, 1 to 3 weeks to process. And then you'll then be asked to submit your application with USCIS. That could take actually 3 to 5 months. And so again, if approved, you're going to receive a formal approval and an employment authorization document from USCIS, which you will then later obviously present to your employer as proof of you being authorized to work in the US.
2 questions in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Krista. So what is the process after getting an offer letter? Do I need to apply for an SSN and then CPT? By which time should I get the internship? And so can I apply for SSN and SCPT? Great question. So When thinking about CPT, you need to get the CPT authorization before you go to the Social Security Administration office and apply for that SSN. So I think once you outline an internship opportunity and the course, you are then partaking in the process with our office to get you the authorization. And then our office will instruct you when to go apply for your SSN. It is typically after receiving the I-20. And how about summer research internships? I think one of the key things in talking about CPT that I didn't mention earlier is, again, it's a paid internship. If there is any type of monetary payment, then you would need CPT authorization, whether it's a research internship that is providing you payment or an outside opportunity from another employer, not just within the research here on campus. Unpaid internships, we do not require CPT authorization because again, there's no monetary, it's not seen as work, right? It's not seen like you are working for pay. So we do not require you to have CPT authorization for unpaid internships. It is specifically when you're talking about paid internships that you will need that authorization from our office before accepting the offer and engaging in the work. All right. So I do want to kind of fast forward in getting you guys thinking about what happens after you apply for post-OPT. Again, this for some of you may be in a couple of years, for some of you may be this semester. So thinking about what the requirements are under your OPT period. So obviously, again, OPT and CPT are always related to your field of study. And so I think another common question that we get is like, well, how do I know if this job is related to your field? And going based on some of the feedback that Esther provided today, and even what our office asked you to do is look at what you're applying, right? Look at those job duties, look at those responsibilities to really guide you and understand, like, is this something I learned in my program? Were some of these theories and concepts expressed in some of my courses to really understand if it's related or not. Again, it's not, don't narrow mind yourself or your search, as Esther said, think broad, and just make sure that you're able to make some type of connection with what you're doing in this job to what you learned. You need to be working full-time, as I mentioned earlier. And so some of the types of employments allowed during OPT are listed there. So paid for employment, you can have multiple employers. You can even be self-employed as long as the self-employment, again, is directly related to your field. As far as reporting, I'll go ahead and skip over to the next slide here. You will need to be reporting your employment during OPT to our office and both to a government system known as CVIS. You will have direct access to the portal account for CVIS only once you've been approved. And so some of the things that you'll be needing to report is listed there on your screen: employer name, address, and a brief explanation or description, typically no longer than a paragraph long, about making, again, that connection. What is it that you're doing and how does this relate back to your coursework at CSUN for the degree that you are earning? So I provided some examples both at the bachelor's degree level and the master's degree level. This is also coming as examples from Study in the States, which is a great resource for F1 students. If you're not already navigating for Study in the States, I highly recommend that you do. And so I want to just end with saying that our IESC does provide webinars more in detail than today's meeting about OPT and CPT. There are two separate webinars that we do. We do them every semester, and we actually provide multiple webinars throughout the semester. So I encourage you to definitely check us out and sign up for one. And just for the sake of time, I will be sharing my contact information in the chat. But if there's any questions, I saw a few more, I think. Let me just look here. Does CSUN work study job at Research Lab consider CPT or no? So I think it's where are you doing the job, right? I think if it is a CSUN position where CSUN is your employer and it is not taking place off campus, then it would be considered an on-campus employer. But I am curious to know, I think it's always good to check in with us. If you can provide further detail, please do. But from the sounds of that, if you're doing all the research here on campus and your primary employer is CSUN, then it would be classified as a on-campus employer.
Michelle, with this question, because it's saying CSUN work study and international students are not eligible for work study, correct?
Yes, Esther, thank you so much. So yes, that's one of the common things too, where sometimes we get students asking, well, I'm not getting any callbacks, or, why is it? And so, yes, that's a great key point. Thank you for pointing it out. As an international student, you do not qualify for federal work study. It is completely attached to the financial aid application, which international students don't apply to. So be careful of applying for on-campus position that are classified as work study, because as an international student, you are not eligible. So that's probably why you're not hearing from those positions that you're applying for. Great questions, everyone. And like I said before, I will be sharing my email. If you have specific questions from today's meeting, feel free to email me or connect with our office during our advising hours or through email. Thank you.
Are there any additional questions for either Michelle or myself? Anyone? I'll also put my information on the chat.
If I can just take a moment, I'm actually going to share our events and webinars link from the International Exchange website for those students who are interested in those CPT and OPT webinars. Thank you.
I will send out the recording and the slides as soon as Zoom gives it to me. So as soon as it's uploaded to the cloud, I will share it with everyone that was in attendance today. And I think there's a question. Do I need to complete my CPT related course or just need to enroll in that course? That's the question.
Again, the you definitely have to be enrolled in the course. Obviously, the CPT course is going to be directly overseen by a faculty advisor or even the department chair. And so obviously that internship course does have requirements and will determine the grade or the passing. So I think one is actually getting enrolled, and then two is understanding what is the internship course requiring you and how many hours. But all of that, like I said, does involve the department as well. So it will be a discussion that will be facilitated and continued within the department.
Okay, well, I want to thank you for your time today. Actually, there is one more question.
Yeah, no
It was
worries.
a direct message to me. In terms of STEM OPT extension, do we have to pay for another fee upon applying for extension?
Yes, and thank you for noting that. So again, the initial authorization is post OPT, and typically it's a year. If you are a student who is a STEM degree major, you will go through that extension process similar to the post OPT process again, and there is a fee attached to that EAD card or to that process. So you will partake in the application process twice, once for OPT and once for the extension.
And there's one more, last one. STEM students have 1 year OPT and extension 2-year OPT. If applied to IESC, no need job hiring letter?
No, so yeah, so there are specific documents for the STEM extension. Again, definitely visit our website because there are a list of documents that you will share with us. It's not necessarily in the form of an offer letter, but there is a form known as the form I-983, which will be part of the STEM OPT period. And so that is an agreement between the student and the employer. So it's clear to us what that agreement is and who your employer is. It's not necessarily you submitting the offer letter to us. But yes, there is a process that you will partake in, and it will involve our office.
And the last question of the day, if I do a STEM extension, do I need to also renew my visa?
Great question. And this is just a rule of thumb for all students in the OPT world or not. So what is currently keeping you in status now that you've entered the US is your Form I-20. So at any point in time, if your visa expires, that is okay. But it does become an issue when students are still interested in traveling back home and then re-entering. So if your visa expires and you do have plans to travel back home, then you do need to renew your visa. But if you will not be traveling abroad, then your I-20 will keep you in status, and you can still apply for both STEM or post OPT with an expired visa. Just understanding that you won't be able to travel. But your passport and your I-20 do have to be valid at all times. Great questions, everyone.
All right, well, thank you so much for all the wonderful questions you've asked of us today. We're here to assist you with any career or CPT or OPT needs. Feel free to reach out to myself or to Michelle. And I want to thank you again for joining us this afternoon. And we look forward to engaging with you in more programming that's up ahead. So have a
Definitely.
great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.